All right, hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about what a realistic workout timeline looks like to, reach your goals, to get the body that you really want to have. And starting right off, I just know that there's a lot of mixed opinions about this. I've had people say like, oh, it takes like years upon years, and then there's also people who say, oh yeah, you could probably achieve it in a month. Like one of my friends recently, he was talking about how you could get abs within 1 month just by doing a 10-minute workout on YouTube every single day, and I'm like, that's just not feasible because what if you have fat there, like a whole bunch of other reasons, like are those abs even going to look good at the end, right? You want to look aesthetic, right? You don't want to just be like skinny fat, um yeah, simple answer for people who are maintaining a good diet, good nutrition, going to the gym regularly, sleeping well. Probably around 1 to 3 years would be your mark. I personally made a decent amount of progress within my 2 years of lifting. I think I started seeing noticeable results within the 1 year mark, maybe 1.5 year mark. Um, but generally speaking, like this time frame is if you're like, for example, someone in my position, you've been like skinny like all your life, perhaps like even underweight, like 150 pounds, and you really put the time every single week to really start working on yourself. So that means like going to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, working on your nutrition and all those types of things. And especially within this timeline, it's very like noticeable to like change, right? Because like everyone has a different goal, right? Some people just want to be toned, as they say, or some people just want to lose fat. But realistically speaking, it's very hard to see progress within the first couple of months that you start work. Maybe the first like 2 or 3, but like to see noticeable product progress from like when you first start to when you like, where you are like 2 years down the line, you're going to see a massive difference. And especially within the first year of lifting, this is like where the newbie gains start coming in. So there are going to be like, this is the most optimum time for you to build muscle. Like no matter what you do, as long as you go into the gym and kind of just like feel the atmosphere, like you will get gains, right? You could do bicep curls. You could do like 10-pound bicep curls. You'll get gains. And then eventually you start have to like focusing a little bit more because then your body is not like adapting as rapidly. It's harder to build muscle. Years 2, 3, 4, and so on, you'll have marginally less muscle growth per year, and that's just what happens when you're like a natural, right? And obviously, yes, there's like supplements that could help. There's like creatine, fish oil, magnesium, vitamin D, even like melatonin to help you get restful sleep. But personally, I haven't really seen too many results from these. I personally take creatine, but truth be told, like I've been on like creatine for like the past like year probably, and I haven't really seen that many noticeable changes. But that could just be because like I'm taking it so often. But generally speaking, yeah, the time frame for, I would say, like becoming like aesthetic and becoming like truly toned, so going through that like bulking phase of like 1 to 2 year bulk where you're like eating 500 to 1,000 calories more than you normally do, all the way down to your cutting phase where you're taking away 500 calories. That process usually takes a decent amount of time, and I would advise most people who want to like build muscle to really focus on bulking at first. There's a lot of people out there who really just want to lose fat. And I think for most young guys and girls out there, it's very enticing to like go with that approach, but there's like a saying where it's like you can't sculpt a pebble, but you could sculpt a boulder, right? Which basically means that once you build up that solid foundation of muscle, then you could already, you could cut back on the fat and then show like, the muscle fibers, like your bicep vein, like whatever, and like really show that aesthetic a little bit more. I know a lot of friends who go to the gym and they're always like cutting. So they're doing like 30 minutes of cardio every single day. They're eating like 1,000 calories below maintenance. And when this happens, like I kind of like think to myself, I'm like, I don't think much progress is going to be like healthier. You're not going to be, upping up your bench press or your squat or your deadlift or anything along those lines. And like, you've been working for 2 years and you're still on the same like, I don't know. Generally speaking, yeah, I would say most people should start bulking within their first couple of years, and then once you build up to a noticeably high amount, like maybe even overweight. Like I bulked up to 210, and that's like considered overweight, but I still look like I don't look overweight, right? Once you get to that point, then it's like time to start like thinking about like, oh, should I start cutting now? Do I have a solid foundation that I could rely on, right? And yeah, I mean, that's a little bit about the realistic timeline. As long as you're consistent, you're going every single, a couple times every single week, not every single day. That's weird. And you're getting enough sleep, you're getting nutrition, you're meeting your 1 gram of protein per body pound. And you're doing everything else right, like low stress levels, all those types of things. Generally speaking, like 1 to 2 years is a good time frame to like see noticeable results in all those things. And I've had friends as well who have been working out for like, for example, 6 months, and they're like, "Oh, Kevin, my biceps not growing. Oh, my arm is so small. Like my chest isn't growing any bigger." And I'm like, "Yo, chill. You're like doing all the right things. You literally just have to give it time." And like I've been through those positions as well. I've had like ups and downs in my workout progress where it's like there's been like months where I haven't been able to up my bench. I was stuck on 225 for about 2 months last year in terms of my PR, and I just could not get it up. And I was doing everything right, and at the end I just realized it's just because I wasn't giving myself enough time. Like, and partially because it was like a mental too, I think. But like one day it was just like, one day it was super hard. I literally couldn't even lift it off my chest, and then the next day it was like, like straight up. So just generally speaking, just make sure you're consistent and like give it time, and usually results will start happening. I think another good rule to like kind of assess your progress as well is like the third rule. So you have your set of workouts. Let's say you go to the gym like maybe 100, 200 times a week, right? You divide those into like thirds, right? So, for example, the left side would be your bad workouts. The middle would be how good your workouts are, or like average workouts. And then, the right side is like, oh, I have the biggest pump of all time. Today felt great. I have all these endorphins and like all those types of things. You really need to assess like how your state of working out is. So after a month, look at like your workout progress, how many of them lie in each category. And if you see a lot of them trending to the left, where it's like very bad, then you kind of have to reassess. Oh, am I not getting enough sleep? Oh, am I not training hard enough? Oh, am I not hydrating? Is there some sort of stress in my life that I haven't been able to deal with? And then obviously, like if you're on the right side, where it's like every single time it feels like amazing to go lift, you're super motivated, you're super pumped, you have like no fatigue, then you're doing something right, and you want to continue doing that, even if you think, oh, I'm not seeing progress with like body dysmorphia or something along those lines. So generally speaking, just don't get caught up in one particular workout. Like obviously we all have bad days. There's been days where I haven't even been able to like leg press like two, or not leg press, squat like 225, which is like stuff happens, but like you just have to make sure that most of your workouts are lying in the higher range in terms of that like 1/3 like breakdown, right? And yeah, I mean that's like kind of what we're going to talk about for consistency. But now I kind of wanted to dive a little bit into some tips to make sure that you're able to stay consistent. So there's a couple of things. I would say the biggest thing would be to make sure lifting and eating is fun. I know a lot of people tend to like break away from diets, like they go on like keto diets or like fat loss diets for like 2 weeks, and then they just lose motivation after that, and they start eating a bunch of junk food to regain their calories. And like those diets are like great and all, but like at the same time you have to make sure it's manageable, right? So kind of ease into it, right? If you are going to do a diet, you have to make sure that it's something that you could stick to, right? I could starve myself and like eat like 1,000 calories every day to cut, but like that is just not sustainable for me. I know I'm always going to have cravings, all those types of things. So just make sure that you're making it fun and enjoyable for yourself. So like nutrition wise, it would always be like cooking yourself something interesting for lunch or dinner. If you really like chicken, learn how to make really, really good chicken. Something that I'm still trying to learn actually. If you're a more like steak guy, then eat, make your steak well or something. And always like it's okay to give yourself a cheat meal once in a while as well. Just make sure you're roughly kind of counting like how many calories you have, how many grams of protein you're getting in that day. And then on the other side, lifting as well. Like make sure your routine is fun. Make sure it's something you go to. Maybe not every single day, because you can't really maintain that level of motivation. It's more like of a discipline after the first like month or two. But just make sure it's something that you're really like engaged in during the first 2 weeks. There's like people who go to the gym for New Year's, right? We all know this. We've done it before. We go to the gym for New Year's, and then we start lifting for a week, and then we literally just stop because like we don't have the motivation, right? So try to reduce that friction in terms of the mental like power that you need to like go to the gym. So for example, like just make sure you're like setting set schedules. Like when you actually go, you're doing something that you enjoy. You're sticking to a particular schedule that you can accommodate towards, right? And if people are busy, they work like 9 to 5 jobs. See if you could go in the morning. See if you could go like right after work. Just make sure you're holding yourself accountable, right? You could try lifting out or lifting weights with like one of your friends to make sure you're accountable. Just make sure there's someone that you could rely on as well. And yeah, that's like kind of my 2 cents for that. And then also another like smaller tip: always make sure to take progress pictures. This is something that I didn't really do when I was like starting. I took pictures of myself like right before, but just be consistent with it. And once you start seeing your progress, like let's say you take a progress picture like every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and once you see that like culmination of like, oh wow, I'm really getting more like toned. I have like more muscle on myself. I don't have like these stubborn belly fat that I have. Then like it's a lot more easier. It's a lot easier to like continue going. It's a little bit more of a snowball effect in terms of like, oh, I see progress. I know I'm like going in the right direction. You could keep going. And it's also like a form of reassessment too. So like if you haven't seen progress within 6 months, without maybe even like a year, then like that's time to like reassess. Like, oh, maybe I should try something new. Maybe this workout isn't intense. And that's leading into my next point as well. So always make sure you are training with intensity, right? I know workout is not necessarily like the end all be all, like nutrition, like sleep, all that stuff is important too. But if you're going to the gym like after like year 1 or year 2 and you are not training with the intensity that you should be, like you're kind of just breezing through it, you're not really pushing yourself, you have like 3 or 4 reps left in the tank, it's going to be a lot more challenging to actually build muscle, to build strength, to like be in a hypertrophic condition, right? And that's primarily just because like research has shown that you have to like push your muscles basically close to failure, like 1, 2, or maybe even no reps left in the tank, right? And that's like what basically stimulates like muscle growth, right? Obviously like there's fatigue and all, which is like kind of like a weight of like, oh, if I push myself too hard this day, then I'll be too fatigued the next day, right? And you kind of had to find that like sweet middle ground as well. Like especially when you're in the very beginning stages, you're going to be fatigued almost every single workout. You're going to be sore the next day because your muscle isn't used to it, right? But you do have to train yourself with a level of intensity that shows that you're increasing every single week or every single month or whatever time frame you're looking at, right? If you're on the same weight level and you're not making progress, that is a sign to usually switch within the first like 1 or 2 years, right? I think another good way of thinking about this too is you basically do a workout. Let's say you're doing 3 sets of like bicep curls, right? The first day, let's say you start off with like 25 pounds, right? The first day you do as many as you possibly can. You test your limit, and then like, oh, good, like this is my limit. I can't do any more. Stay there, right? If it's too light, go higher, right? So first day you're doing 3 sets. You have like 10 reps that you're doing. If you could surpass like 10 reps, then maybe you should like increase the weight. And then if not, then like maybe reduce the weight. So now like, or sorry, not reduce the weight, but like really keep track of that, right? So for example, like I said, 25 reps or 25 pounds, you're doing 10 reps. Get to the point where you could do more than 10 reps, right? Then up the weight and then go to a little bit less reps. So let's say you go to 27.5, now you're doing 6 reps, and you build all the way back up to 10 until you can't go anymore. Then you go to 30 for your weight, and then you go to, back down to 6, wait until you could go all the way back up to 10. That's like a very basic like progression system that you could implement. But yeah, I mean, overall, that's like kind of all the stuff that I wanted to cover for this video. I hope this gives a little bit more insight into the realistic timeline of, people that are trying to like get into the gym. Obviously this is more geared towards like college students or like skinny people who want to like bulk up and get a little bit more muscular. But I think most of the advice that I've been giving can apply to a lot of other people as well. Just generally speaking, be consistent, make sure it's fun, and have a great workout. So yeah.